All right, so I wanted to give a little legal lesson to some of you guys, because a lot of people who are teaching law on the internet do not understand law or legal precedents or just how the court system works in general. And there's a reason why I made multiple videos about the right to travel, um, and telling you that it's a wasted argument. Now, you have to understand this phrase right here, which is called stare dices. Okay. So stare dices is a phrase basically saying that anything is decided. Basically, the court can't go against something that's already decided. Okay, when you go into court and there's already a legal precedent set, there's no reason to argue anything against that legal precedence unless that legal precedent that was set was done improper. That's the only time you need to bring up an argument. So in most cases, your argument is not the actual right that you have. The argument is that the court is infringing on a certain right. So I hope you understand that. So to understand this better, you have to understand what stare decisis is. So stare decisis is a doctrine that the court will adhere to the precedent in making their decisions. Stare decisis means to stand by things decided in Latin. When a court faces a legal argument, if a previous court has ruled on the same or closely related issue, then the court will make their decision in alignment with the previous court's decision. This is why I try to tell you guys, do not bring up certain arguments in court proceedings, because what will happen is you're not really creating new arguments or new case law. These arguments are stare dices, and you're not bringing up the correct argument. This is why sometimes people will say, you got to bring up the right to travel, but they don't tell you how to bring up the right to travel. And that's where people go into court saying they have a right to travel, and the judge looks at them crazy. Just like people say, HER 192, discharge your debt, even though I disproved this. They sit there and they bring this argument up in court, and then they get bounced out because they don't understand court is different. A judicial court operates different than an administrative court. Okay. So the previous deciding court must have binding authority. Okay. So now you have to understand what binding authority is. Mandatory authority. Mandatory authority, unlike persuasive authority, describes legal authority that is binding and must be followed. Okay. So all mandatory authority are primary sources of law. However, not all primary sources of law are mandatory authority because the jurisdiction affects whether a legal authority is mandatory or persuasive. A secondary source of law can never be mandatory authority. Mandatory authority consists of constitution, legislations, and judicial decisions. Constitutions derive their authority from the people. So constitutions bind only those who have agreed to be bound. So that means anybody who takes an oath is bound to legislature's laws. So when this person was trolling me on the internet, I was going to hit them with this, but I said, no, sometimes you don't reveal all of the stuff you know. And I really don't reveal a quarter of the stuff I know. I'm just giving you a little bit of chunk. So when you're fighting this stuff, you can understand. Okay. Thus, while the Constitution of the United States is mandatory authority in every state and every court in the United States, and individual states' constitution is mandatory authority only within the state's jurisdiction. In this situation, even though a state's constitution is the primary source of law, it is not automatically mandatory authority. So now you understand something that's going to hugely impact when you guys go into court. Most of you guys need to stop being afraid. Okay. The key to stopping anything is really your fear, just dealing with your fear. So now you have to understand what persuasive authority is. Okay. So persuasive authority, unlike mandatory authority, describes a source of law, primary or secondary, that carries some authoritative weight but does not bind a court. So when someone is saying, I do not understand law, I am ignorant, what they're really saying to me is they are ignorant of the law because I very well, I'm very well versed in law. So that's the one thing that most people cannot refute. I don't get into all these case laws and all this other stuff because this is my crux, my backbone is understanding what the court can do, what the court can't do, what the police can do, what they can't do, what the sheriff can do, what they can't do, um, and other things. So what I'm going to end up doing is one of the things I'm going to add to my law class is how to stop sheriff sales without actually suing your lender. But there's so many things that I could just bring out. I'm just giving you little chunks and pieces. But I wanted y'all to see this because when people try to say challenge my videos and say I don't know what I'm talking about, I do know what I'm talking about. I just don't say everything I know. And with that being said, deuces, everybody.